content itself, I want to take you up a mountain. Now, I don't know how many of you ever climbed a mountain. I haven't. That telepathically I have, which is probably an easier way of doing it. But it's been known that if you were to plot your path to get up to the mountaintop, if you were to find the best way to get to the mountaintop, if you were to plot the path or try and work out your path standing at the bottom of the mountain, it's actually more difficult than if you were on top of the mountain and you look down. Because when you're at the mountaintop, so say somebody helicoptered you up to the mountaintop so that you can then work out how you want to climb up, you actually have a better view to decide where you might go, oh, that's a bit steep, or, oh gosh, that's really rocky, you know, oh, that looks like a lot better if I kind of go this way. You can actually kind of plot it a lot easier if you're looking from the top down. Whereas if you're standing at the bottom of the mountain and you look up and you think to yourself, gosh, that's a long way. Oh my God, that's really steep. And you're only really standing at that one point. You can't actually, you don't have that vantage point to see all your other options. So what I want to do is take you up a mountain of your animal communication journey. So I'd like to know, what would be your mountaintop? So what do I mean by that? When you've reached the top of the mountain of whatever it is that you're seeking with animal communication, communicating with your pets, what would that be? What would it look like? Where will you be at? Do you know? So some thoughts in the chat box for me to kind of warm up to where you're at. What would be your, say, your goal or your wish or your desire? What is it that you imagine it would be once you kind of tick the box to say, oh, I can do this, I can do this. What would it be? What would be your mountaintop? Give you a few moments to think it through, and let me see what's in the chat box there for you. Okay, let's see. So Catherine says to build a better bond and understanding with my dogs. So when you're at the top of the mountain, you will have animal communication to help you to have a strong bond and understanding with your dogs. Yeah, so your mountaintop is, I can communicate with my dogs easily. They'll understand me, I'll understand them, because it really is about us being really bonded. Okay. So Vicky, your mountaintop is to understand how they're feeling physically and emotionally to help rescue dogs as well as my own. Okay, so your mountaintop, Vicky, is that you're able to communicate with rescue dogs and your own pets, and it will feel easy for you, that you can get them to open up, you know, that they trust you, and that you're able to receive what they're saying without kind of struggling or wondering whether, you know, you're doing it right or wrong. So that's kind of like your mountaintop. So Carol says to have conversations with animals. Yeah, so all species, by the sounds of it, you can just, you know, connect in with an insect, you can connect in with the birds and just have conversations, hear from them, and they can hear you. So that's your mountaintop. Catherine says to be able to reassure them in another way when things worry them. Okay, so your mountaintop is about being able to explain things to them in a way that they can understand. So it takes away their stress. Okay. And Adele, your mountaintop is better understanding of my pets and other animals. Okay, so your mountaintop will be that the level of your communication with your pets and other animals really facilitate an understanding, so that you can, for example, maybe explain things to them that might not be natural to them. They might have to live in a certain environment that's not the most suitable for them. But it may be that they just need to have an understanding that they are where they're at in that moment in time, because we can't always change things. We can't, you know, give them everything that they need, because we ourselves might not have that. Okay, so Thelma says to better understand them and to know my animals can reach me whenever they want to convey any issue. Okay, so your mountaintop will be that your animals can initiate contact, that you're aware that if they need you, be it a crisis, be it something that they're worried, it's not about you having to check in on them. You'll hear them and you'll go like, wow, okay, so-and-so needs me. Okay. And Karen, you say to have that connection with my pets and help rescues and wildlife. Yeah. So you're looking at your mountaintop whereby you're able to connect in with all species as well. But there's also that element about being able to help rescue and wildlife. So being able to connect in the way that you can really tune in to what their needs are rather than what you think their needs are. Okay. And Janice, soul connection. So your mountaintop is to connect at a level that's kind of beyond just physical and emotional, but that, there's also this kind of exploration and connection with something bigger, not just this kind of physical body, but perhaps is there a past connection, past life connection, meaning of why animals come into our lives, why certain ones come into our lives, why we are in their lives. Okay. And Maggie, you're saying connect with pets that have passed as well as living. Okay, so your mountaintop will be that your communication kind of skills and abilities will allow you to connect with animals, whether they're living or in spirit, and receive messages, perhaps to comfort others, because often we want to connect with pets who have passed because we want to check that everything's okay. Plus, they have a big role in making sure that we are okay. It's not just us checking on them. They like to check in on us. Are we okay? Okay. And Hannah, your mountaintop is open, easy, confident conversation with my pets and other animals daily, leading to better understanding and improved relationships and better quality of life. Hannah, can you please write this out and pin it on the board? How clear is that vision? All right. Connecting with the emotion as well of what you've written there. I think you've just summarized all the things that we all want. So, there's a beautiful emotion in there. I wonder if you can pinpoint the emotion associated what you've written there, because if you can connect in with that emotion, that's actually your mountaintop. So Lisa says, be able to communicate in person with others, pets and animals. So this is their life in that moment. So being able to communicate with animals kind of on demand, as and when, that you can somebody can just meet you for coffee and go, oh, I really need your help. And you'll be able to communicate with them there and then. Okay. And Catherine, you've also written to be able to recognize when they're communicating with me through words, feelings, emotions, images, etc., and to know it from them, not just what I have thought before to be me making stuff up. Yeah, you want to be clear. You want to be able to say, this is communication. Okay. All right. And Maggie, you agree with Thelma and Karen. It's great that you can see what each other's mountaintops are, because I bet you all share very similar. Okay. Feels like love. It does make sense. So the emotion is love for you. Okay. Okay, so just to do a little quick recap, Joni, we're talking about the mountaintop of your animal communication. So you can have a read in the chat box if you can access the chat box. So the question is, what would be your mountaintop? Where would you be at when you have almost, inverted commas, tick all the boxes and you are communicating in the way that you would love to be able to do either with your own pets or other animals? So if you want to put in the chat box when you get a bit of time, Joni, then do. Okay, so let me now take us to the mountaintop together, and I'm going to walk you down the mountain. So remember, when we start at the top, it's easier to see our path going down, which allows us to know from where we start what's the best path up. So it sounds a little bit topsy-turvy, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. So say we're all at the top of the mountain. I think from all the things that you've all shared, it can be summarized that we will all be at that place where we can converse fluently with our pets anytime, anywhere. And it goes without saying that when you're able to communicate with your pets, you can certainly communicate with other animals and species. So therefore, the question here is, what did you have to do, or where do you have to be in terms of your animal communication learning for you to get to the point where you are conversing fluently with your pets anytime, anywhere? It would be knowing how to approach your pets and opening up the channels of communication. So if we think about it, when we feel confident that we know how to approach our animals in a communication and we know how to open up the channels of communication, it allows for us to be fluent. So therefore we can converse anytime, anywhere. So then you want to ask yourself, what do I have to do, or where do I need to be in order to get myself to the point of knowing how to approach my pets and opening up the channels of communication? It would be that you are prepared to be courageous, not be too much of a perfectionist when it comes to communicating with your pets daily and trying it out and exploring different topics. So then you ask yourself that question, where do you need to be? And what do you need to be doing before you get to the point where you are actually communicating with your pets daily, not being afraid of stumbling and just being courageous and curious and exploring different topics? You would actually already have learned to recognize your own and your pet's communication style. And this is something we're going to be talking about a little bit more, because we all have a different communication style, and so do our pets. And it links in with our personality and character. So if you are a quiet person, if generally you are not a chatterbox, it may be that your style of communicating is that you want to take a little longer. It could be that you could, want to feel into the conversation. Same goes with your animals. Or if your animal is, say, an extrovert, they're going to communicate quite extrovertly, quickly, exuberantly, so it's recognizing it. So if, let's say, you are an extrovert and say your dog is an introvert, I'm just using generalized terms, and therefore as an extrovert, you're expecting, because you've asked a question and you're usually such an extrovert, that your dog will also reply extrovertly and excitedly. But if they're an introvert, it could be that they might need a little bit more time, or they could be quieter, okay? So therefore, you're at this stage already. You're already learning to recognize your own style and their communication style. So the question to ask yourself is, what do I need to do, or where would I need to be in my animal communication learning in order to get to that place where I've learned to recognize my own style and my pet's style? You want to be powering up your intuitive senses. So your intuitive senses is the language that you're going to be accessing to communicate with your pets and other animals. Intuitive senses are the visual, the sound, the smell, the taste, the emotion, the physical sensation, and something called the knowingness. So then you have to ask yourself, how do I get to the point? What do I have to do before I get to the point where I've powered up my intuitive senses? You want to activate your imagination, because as much as you try to power up your intuitive senses, if you are not activating your imagination, you won't be able to connect with your intuitive senses. So guess what the question is? what do I have to do? Where do I need to be in order to get to a place where I activate my imagination? You start by adopting a curious attitude. And you really, really, I've written two reallys there, really, really trust myself. Because that's key. How can you activate your imagination if you're not curious? How can you activate your imagination if you don't trust yourself? So then, one more time, we ask this question: where do I need to be? How do I get to that point just before I get to a place where I trust myself and I promise that I'm going to have a curious attitude? You uncover your set of blocks and understand how to overcome them. So I wonder which point of the mountaintop you are at this place. So if you're happy to share, you can pop it in the chat box. I'll just give you a moment so that you have an awareness of where you're at. And hopefully when we kind of see it this way, it doesn't feel impossible. So say if we started with, right, I want to get myself up to the point where I'm conversing fluently with my animals. You might be going, well, I don't know if I'll ever get there. Oh, you know, I've only been doing it for 3 months, or, you know, I've been doing it for 2 years and I still don't get it. But actually, when you look down and you see the path that you need to do with each step, hopefully it kind of breaks it down to make it more manageable for you. Okay. That's it. So just have an awareness of where you're at. And you know what? These steps, just like, I don't know, again, I can only imagine when you climb a mountain, sometimes it feels like you're going up, sometimes it feels like you're going back down. So it can change. There are times when I think to myself, and again, it doesn't matter, you know, that I do this every day and I offer it as, you know, a paid service and I'm helping animals and I communicate with my own. This list or these steps are useful because there are times when I think, not getting anything off my dog today. What's going on? And then I think to myself, hang on a minute, what's going on? And then I might go, okay, I understand their communication style, but actually I haven't powered up my intuitive senses recently. So I'll say to myself, perhaps then I'm not receiving something, not because they're not speaking, but it's because my intuitive senses are a little bit asleep, a little bit dormant today. So then I will go and power up my intuitive senses, and then it might just kind of unplug the flow. Okay. So this gives you an idea of, if you feel that, say you're at the covering my set of blocks, then that's what you focus on. If you think, well, I'm, you know, pretty good with trusting myself, I'm pretty good with activating my imagination, I'm pretty good at recognizing my own style and my pet's communication style, but I'm kind of a bit stuck about what to talk about. Okay, so then you can look at that and say, right, maybe I need to look at my personality. Maybe I need to look at their personality. So I hope that that's helpful. Just going to check the chat box for a little bit. Yeah, okay. So keep in mind your mountaintop. Always look from the top down. Okay, so I love all your mountaintops as well. So everything that you've written in the chat box, keep it somewhere, put it on a post-it so you don't lose sight of the mountaintop, because that's what's going to keep you going.